Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I am very disappointed that we're not able to proceed with a motion to get back to the witnesses. We're the government's position seems to be that they will refuse to allow the witnesses to testify as a way of forcing us to advance a motion that is poorly drafted, that is out of order, that seeks to ignore the established rules of the House without any kind of dialogue whatsoever. And I think this is unfortunately clearly a way of them avoiding hearing from the testimony that that Plato and the Ghost Warrior Society have to offer. I've said and I'll say it again. We're ready to discuss some procedure around how we could approach these meetings that conforms to the rules of the House, recognizing that the vast majority of parliamentary committees have government chairs, that this committee has an opposition chair, and that part of the reason some committees have an opposition chair is it allows them to have a few additional tools for getting to issues of government corruption. We are trying to investigate the Liberal Indigenous procurement scandal, where, as we have heard, there has been just a flagrant disregard for what Indigenous organizations are saying about Indigenous identity in the course of the way the government has administered these programs. And people can go back and look at the discussions. Liberals were extremely reluctant about this study happening at all. They wanted to severely constrain the number of meetings we had on it. They wanted to severely limit the number of ministers that would be called. They have done everything they can to avoid us getting to the bottom of their own failures. Liberals used to talk about how the most important relationship that they had as a government was with Indigenous people. You don't hear them even saying that anymore because they have frankly they've given up on delivering results. They have tried to have a program that looks on the face of it like it's delivering opportunity for Indigenous communities, but in reality, they have admitted that it's not about that. It's, according to the minister, the only purpose of the program is identifying indigeneity, and as we've heard today, it can't even effectively identify indigeneity. So Liberals have been failing so profoundly when it comes to delivering results, especially in the area of economic development and opportunity for Indigenous Canadians, for all Canadians. And this is the context in which they have sidelined this discussion with a
I'm sorry, someone is singing online. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Janis. Go ahead, Mr. Janis.
Yeah. So look, if we're going to be forced to have this procedural discussion, then I have an amendment to put forward to the motion. In some ways, I'm reluctant to do that because I don't want to. I would rather not indulge this at all. I would rather just insist on the point that we should hear from the witnesses and deal with this motion in a proper way at the proper time. Instead, we're into procedural kind of back and forth on a matter that is not on the agenda, is not in order, and we've got witnesses that are sitting here that have, in some cases, traveled a long distance and a long time to testify. So, I'm sorry that we're here, but but it's obviously it's not our desire that we're here, right? We want to be talking about the substance of the Indigenous procurement issues. And look, the other thing is, like, if the government's serious about working on solutions to this issue, let's work on solutions. I think this committee could actually work constructively and put forward some very good solutions around the area of making the Indigenous procurement program work as it's intended, and actually shed some light on the problems and the needs for improvement. Instead, the government is choosing a different direction, sadly. So, Chair, I see some other hands. Maybe I'll hold off on moving my amendment for the moment. And I don't know if other members want to. I would like us to be able to adjourn this debate and move back to where we are. So maybe I'll just conclude my comments for now by moving a motion to adjourn debate on this. And if it comes back to me, I guess I'll move an amendment. But I would rather just get to hearing from the witnesses. So at this point, I'll move that we'll see where it goes. I'll move that we adjourn debate on this.
Go ahead, sir. Ms. Atwin?
No.
Mr. Baines?
No.
Mr. Johari?
No.
Monsieur Zuberi?
No.
Mr. Koto?
No.
Ms. Block?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Madame Vignala?
Wait.
Mr. Backrack?
No.
Okay, yeas pour 4, 4, and nays contre 6, 6. Back to the motion, Mr. Brock.
Well, amazement again. During my first intervention, Mr. Chair, and to the witnesses, I was spending some time highlighting how deeply disappointed I was with this particular tactic and the timing of this tactic to delay hearing. Again, another tactic.
Sorry, go ahead, Ms. Atwin, Mrs. Atwin.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if you could provide us with the speaking list. My hand's been up for quite some time. I'm not sure where Mr. Brock was in that order.
Yes, I have yourself, then Mr. Koto, and then Mr. Genuous. Go ahead, Mr. Brock.
Thank you. During my initial remarks, I heard from various members, particularly from the government, that they wanted to get back to hearing from the witnesses. I heard that from at least 2 members, and I see that, Crystal, you're shaking your head in the affirmative because that's what we all believed. Let's limit the discussion. Let's get back to a vote, and let's get to hearing the witnesses. So how deeply, deeply disappointed I am to hear that was never their agenda all along. Just to my point, they will take every opportunity to shut down committees where it's deeply, deeply embarrassing to them. Yet another scandal that's within their making. They've turned a blind eye to this practice for years, despite various organizations, despite many, many Indigenous leaders from across this country warning the government about the abuses. We finally got a committee to study this abuse. And what do they want to do? They want to talk about the structure by which we hold meetings during break weeks, because that's more of a priority to them, the actual process, than it is to examine their own failed, corrupt practices. And to learn that the NDP, who we thought, according to Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP party, who had torn up the supply and confidence agreement, again, just a play on Canadians. The timing was to reinforce his efforts in the by-elections in Winnipeg and the by-elections in Quebec, because clearly we see this now at this committee. We've been seeing it in the House, that this NDP government that really holds no core identity anymore as to what they truly believe in will criticize the government and then vote blindly in favor. And now we have an NDP member who I thought wanted to hear from witnesses, wanted to engage in this particular debate, wanted to get to recommendations so that we can improve economic reconciliation across this great nation with Indigenous nations and Indigenous neighbors. It's all a ploy. It's a ploy to keep this government in power, to shut down these important debates. So how hypocritical to hear from this NDP member. The coalition is still alive. And again, I offer my apologies. We will get to a point where we'll continue this conversation. I don't have any hope that it's going to happen today, but I look forward to seeing you again, and to the witness on Zoom. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Brock. We have Mr. Koto, or sorry, Mrs. Atwin, then Mr. Koto, and then Mr. Genuous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be very brief. If we could just vote on this matter, we could get back to the witnesses. And so this idea that there's procedural shenanigans at foot and it's on behalf of us is quite shocking. My goodness, we absolutely want to hear from the witnesses. The grandstanding, it's almost laughable for me to see the Conservatives speak in this way. I'd love to give them the opportunity to continue to speak on their expertise and knowledge and how much they support Indigenous communities, because I think it's important and it should be a nonpartisan issue. I just really want to know why we're so opposed to the chair showing us respect. This is a very simple motion that we could have been able to get through as a committee. We want to be prepared. We want to be here to put our best foot forward for this important study. And again, Mr. Brock, this idea that we just have these open, days on these break weeks. These are constituency weeks. We have very specific meetings scheduled with organizations, with entities. I'm supposed to be at a Indigenous social work conference right now, which is really important to me as well. So, your disappointment is well placed, I think, with yourself. And so I would really like to just close this matter, get to a vote, and absolutely hear from these incredible witnesses who have come forward today. Thank you.
Mr. Koto.
Yeah, and I would agree 100% with my colleague. I sit on 2 committees, and I've never seen this before, where a last-minute decision was made by the chair without consulting any of the members outside of his colleagues to make a decision. And just for the witnesses to take note that 90% of the actual talking time is being occupied by the Conservatives. So if they really want to get back to business, they just have to stop talking and let's deal with this motion. It's very simple. It's just saying basically respect the committees and consult them when calling a meeting. And it's that simple. So if the Conservatives really want to get things moving, just stop talking and let's vote. Thank you.
Mr. Generous.
Okay, Chair. So just to respond to a couple of the just absurd things that have just been said, like listen to the argument that Mr. Couteau is making. He's like, all we're asking for is respect and proper notice. And therefore we've moved a motion with 0 notice that has nothing to do with the topic. It was ruled out of order by the chair. And then they overruled the chair because they don't understand the rules. It's clear they don't understand the rules because they're asking what motions are as they're being moved. So you have Liberals that are being given a strategy by TMO staffers. They don't understand the procedural mechanics at all. They don't understand the rules. And then they're putting forward a motion with 0 notice that would effectively gut the ability of the opposition to be able to convene meetings. The vast majority of parliamentary committees have government chairs. And the idea that government chairs haven't convened meetings, I mean, it is in times and places and ways that they have chosen to without consultation of the committee. The idea that hasn't happened is complete nonsense. And somehow when opposition
just stop talking.
Chairs of committees.
Sorry, let me interrupt. Sorry, Mr. Generous. Mr. Koto, if you have a point of order, please, just a point of order to the chair, but please don't interrupt. And that goes for everyone, all 4 parties, please. Continue, Mr. Generous.
But I have the floor now. So Mr. Couteau is again just demonstrating that he doesn't understand the rules. He doesn't understand how committees work. The rules
part of point of order.
Move
point of order.
Okay.
When you have
sorry, Mr. Generous.
Or when it's on a matter.
Sorry, Mr. Generous. We have a point of order. Your point of order, Mr. Couteau.
I find it very disrespectful. Just on privilege here, I find it very disrespectful that the member just accused me of not understanding parliamentary procedure. I would have the member know that, I've been elected for 20 years. I've served.
Okay, Mr. Koto, what is your Mr. Koto? What is your point of order?
I just, the point of order is that the member is being very disrespectful and just assuming that he basically said that I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. It's very disrespectful. And as the chair, I think you should hold him accountable to make sure
Mr.
that when
Couteau,
he's making reference, I want him to apologize.
Yeah, Mr. Koto, that's not a point of order, but your point is made, and I understand your point, Mr. Koto. Not dismissing it, but
thank you.
Not a point of order, but your point's made. Mr. Generous, please.
Thank you, Chair. Look, to say this very gently, Mr. Couteau, you have just raised a point of order that you don't like something that I said regarding you not knowing the rules. That point of order itself demonstrates a lack of understanding of what constitutes a point of order. So I'm not.
Let's return to the motion.
Do you want a point of privilege?
I'm sorry that you're
point of privilege, Mr. Chair.
But
point of privilege.
Sorry, Mr. Generous. Go ahead, Mr. Koto.
If you want to go to the next level here, we can do that. you're being very disrespectful to me as a parliamentarian, making the assumption that I don't know what I'm doing in my job is very disrespectful, and I want you to apologize.
Okay.
Or at least withdraw the statement.
Okay, Mr. Coteau, I appreciate what you're saying. It's not a point of privilege. By ruling, Mr. Generous, the floor is yours, but let's return to the motion, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to, Chair. Just respectfully, like the committee has established rules. Those rules define what is a point of order. Those rules define what a point of privilege is. And so, when a Liberal member misuses those terms and concepts to try to interrupt someone who's speaking, that suggests a certain lack of familiarity with those rules.
What about the lack of just decency?
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt, Chair.
What about the lack of
Okay, Mr. Coteau,
Chair?
Mr. Coteau, please, Mr. Generous has the floor. I'm going to ask him to return and stick with the motion. If someone has a point of order, a valid point of order, please address the point of order to the chair, but otherwise let's not be talking over each other. Mr. Generous, please return to the motion.
Thank you. And the context of the motion, I just find it baffling that Liberals both take offense to being called out for not following the rules of committee and insist on not following the rules of committee at the same time. This was a motion that was not in order. The rules of moving a motion are designed to allow members to be able to consider matters appropriately and for committees to regulate their activities. So if you have a motion that is on a substantive matter that is not related to what's currently before the committee, then you have to give 48 hours notice. That is the proper procedure. You give a 48 hours notice for moving a motion. Those are the rules of the committee. And you might like other notice requirements to apply to other things, but that's the rule book. And then if you move, you can move a motion without notice if it is on the matter being discussed before the committee. So then you have Liberals decided that they wanted to, in their coalition with the NDP, decided that they wanted to be able to move a motion that was not on notice, and they wanted to be able to surprise us with it, and then try to make this silly argument that somehow it's our fault for not immediately endorsing sight unseen this motion that we didn't receive proper notice of. Well, that is not only unreasonable and unfair, but that is a violation of the rules of committee. But Liberals and New Democrats, acting as a coalition, have overruled the chair to try to move a motion at a time when they are not allowed to normally move that motion, and at a time when we have witnesses sitting before us whose testimony they are disrupting. So they're complaining about a lack of notice while moving a motion without notice. Now, look, on this point about constituency weeks, we all come from relatively large caucuses, some larger than others. If government members had pressing obligations, they might well have advised some of their colleagues that there was important work that was happening at the committee, and could they substitute for them? That was always an option. Look, we all have to prioritize between different things that are happening, but this is extremely important work, and we have a lot of work, a lot of studies before us, the Government Operations Committee, and we also have uncertain timing around various other political events. So this work needs to get done, and proceeding with that work this week with the allowances for substitution makes eminent sense. So the idea of this motion more broadly is that this is a motion that would make it almost impossible, given this requirement for seeming requirement for unanimity among parties, make it virtually impossible to have meetings outside of those specifically defined time constraints. And look, having meetings, more meetings than just the windows we have during sitting weeks, is what has allowed this committee to get to the bottom of so much Liberal corruption. Having some of these extra meetings has allowed us to get to the bottom of Liberal corruption around government contracting, these abuses we've seen of the Indigenous contracting system, All of this is possible. All of this has been enabled because this is a committee that has been prepared to go above and beyond and get its work done. And no surprise, Liberals have not wanted, do not want that work to be able to continue, which is why they are now trying to throw on the table in the middle of witness testimony the surprise motion that would effectively require unanimity of parties in order to be able to convene a break week. I don't think that's right. I think that's going to undermine the important work of pursuing accountability at this critical accountability committee. This is the work that we're supposed to do as parliamentarians. And I know we all have things we want to do in our constituencies, but the critical work that we're supposed to do as parliamentarians is to review and hold accountable the operations of the executive. That's especially the responsibility of the Government Operations Committee. And we need to have some flexibility to do that. This is an opposition chaired committee for a reason, because the tools of that chairship allow the pursuit of these various scandals that we have seen inflict government broadly over the last 9 years. But this is an important issue. It's a substantial policy issue. I would say, let us do this work. We are, this is an obviously flawed motion, and I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to go into it. Look, I'll propose that amendment if we have to. But in the meantime, look, we've got now under 20 minutes left. Rather than go through amendments back and forth on this motion, let's give the remaining time back to the witnesses and set aside some time to continue on this motion and to work out some of those details at another date soon. I think if members want to have the discussion on a procedure, this motion isn't it. This motion, I think, has a lot of obvious flaws in it. We can work out the procedure at another time soon, but let's give the balance of the time back to the witnesses, and let's set aside some time to do that. So I would now move that we proceed to hearing from the witnesses.